everyone. It's your brother here, reaching you again with the word of God. As I receive it in this truth, I give it to you. Today we're going to continue where we left off last week. And the topic was, when God said, I will make you into something. What does that mean? And we said, whatever God is speaking that he will make you, he has already placed it in you. So you yourself have become a seed and must be sown to the ground. So last week we used Adam to get to know the principles that God laid down from Genesis chapter 2, 18 to 22. And he said, before God uses you to be something he wants to make out of you, first he will take you from nowhere and place you in a place of authority. He will raise you up for people to know your status. And then you have to go into the darkness because he has to sow that seed. And then the seed has to germinate and come out and form a tree and produce. So he is going to raise you far above where you were before you went to the darkness. But Adam was not born. Adam was created and formed. So today we're going to go to the Old Testament and pick up three names: Joseph, Moses, and David. And through them release the keys that God wants us to know. When he said, he has told you, spoken to you that I will make you something to something. So, before we go there, I want us to equip ourselves with certain scriptures. Understanding when God speaks, what does it mean? Because when God speaks, he has sworn an oath to himself. So, and whatever he has spoken must go to do exactly as he has spoken it. And what it does must represent who he is, his holiness. So he cannot lie. So let's turn to Isaiah chapter 14, verse 24. Isaiah 14, verse 24. The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have taught, so it shall come to pass, and as I have purposed, so it shall stand. Let's turn to Numbers chapter 23, verse 19. God is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he should repent. Has he said it, and will he not do? Or has he spoken, and will he not make it good? Joshua chapter 21, verse 43 to 45. So the Lord gave to Israel all the land of which he has sworn to give their fathers, and they took possession of it and dwell in it. The Lord gave them rest all around according to all that he had sworn to their fathers, and not a man of all their enemies stood against them. And the Lord delivered all their enemies into their hands. Not a word failed of any good thing which the Lord has spoken to the house of Israel, all came to pass. So if God has spoken that he's going to make you something, you can be rest assured. Come high water, come low water, come storm, come fire, you will be there. It cannot fail, it will not fail, it shall not fail. So this is what I want you to put into your spirit and believe that. So with that, let's take Joseph as an example. Because Joseph is a kind of Christ. Joseph had to sacrifice for the nation of Israel that God was building. And Christ had sacrificed for the entire human race. So there are keys released through Joseph that is the cornerstone of our belief when he said, I will make you something. It begins in Genesis chapter 37. You can read that, but I'm just going to give you a summary of Joseph up to a point and take it from the word. You can read the beginning on your own. Joseph was the firstborn of Rachel, the woman Jacob loved. certain point. So when Joseph came, Jacob loved Joseph more than all his sons. And as you know, Joseph had the 12 children of Israel who became the nation of Israel. Jacob made Joseph the coat of many colors, and the brothers envied him. Then on top of that, he had a dream that God has made him a king, sitting on a throne, having authority and power over people. And he told the dream to his brothers. It didn't go well. They tried to kill him, put him in a dungeon, and sold him as a slave, and lied about it. So let's pick it up from there, from Genesis chapter 39. Genesis chapter 39, verse 1 to 6. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who were taking him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight, and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under Joseph's authority. So it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in the hands of Joseph, and he did not know what he had except for the bread for which he ate. He did not know except for the bread which he ate. So, like I said, whenever God says he will make you something, he takes you from nowhere. And what thing he's telling you he will make you into, he will show you, because he's a God that starts the end from the beginning. And when you look at your situation, you are nowhere near that place. In fact, it is uncomprehensible, unimaginable. You cannot comprehend it. But he has spoken it. But before he makes you to that point, he will first raise you up to a place of authority with that power. So Joseph here has been raised to take care of everything Potiphar has. But the dream he had, it was not over things, it was over people. So from there, what happened? Potiphar's wife lied about Joseph trying to rape her, and they put Joseph into jail. So let's carry on to chapter 39, verse 20 through to 40, verse 2. Then Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy. And he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hands all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. So first, God will raise you up to a place of authority with that power. Then he will sow you as a seed to the ground. That represents a place of darkness. Joseph went from having authority in the captain of Israel's army. That time, Egypt. That time, Egypt was the highest country in the world. And the person in charge of their military has given Joseph authority over everything he had. But then now he goes to a prison, stripped off of everything he had. Nobody goes to prison with his belongings or possessions. So that was the place of darkness God put him in. But in that place of darkness, two things will happen. Two keys that God is releasing to us. In that place, according to chapter 40, verse 1 and 2, it came to pass after these things that the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their Lord, and the king of Egypt and Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief butler and his chief baker. So he put them in the custody in the house of the captain of guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was confined. Now, Joseph has to be trained in that place of darkness in two areas: in a place of authority and with power. The vertical and the horizontal. Every time you are dealing with God, you have to get the X and the Y axis. God deals with mathematics every time. You have to get the Y and the X axis. The X axis represents the earthly matter. Whatever he is asking you to do, he is going to train you in that place of darkness. That is the X axis, a place of authority. The Y-axis represents his power, divine power that he has to release to you in order for you to carry the assignment that he's given you. So, in the jail, two people came, and they are not ordinary people. The chief butler and the chief baker. The chief baker represents authority without power. The chief butler represents authority with power. So, the baker is in charge of keeping the menu of the king, the food that he will prepare for the king, and getting the wine that the king will drink already. The butler is the one who serves the king. You see, the baker bakes whatever the king wants, the baker will cook it. But that's where his authority ends. Though he has authority to cook what the king wants, but he doesn't have the power to cause the king to eat the food that he has cooked. But the butler, on the other hand, he must taste the food and the wine and approve of it before he tells the king, and the king, it goes to the king's stomach. So the butler has authority over which food that the king should eat, and at the same time he has the power to let the king eat the food upon his recommendation. So the two of them had dreams, and they couldn't interpret it. But what does God do? In the jail, he released a kingdom revelation, divine revelation to Joseph, to be able to interpret dreams that no one could interpret. Because through this is going to open door for you to meet the person that God has appointed for you to meet, in order to open the door, in order for you to sit on that throne that he saw. In Proverbs 18, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 16, it reads, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men." A man's gift makes room for him and bring him before great men. So, now these two people dreamt, and there was no interpreter. So Joseph had to interpret the dreams. And this was what came out. Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and he said to him, "Behold, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches. It was as though it budded. Its blossom shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Then Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Now within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your place. And you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hands according to the former manner when you were his butler. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention to me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that I should be put in the danger." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, "I also was in my dream, and there were 3 white baskets on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of big goods for Pharaoh, and the best ate them out of my head, the basket on my head." So Joseph answered and said, "This is the interpretation of it. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the bears will eat your flesh. The baker, because he has authority with that power, remember God will raise you up and then bury you. The baker has to die. But the butler, because he has authority and power, he was lifted up and restored. So the 2 keys that God will teach you when you go into that darkness. 1, he must teach you exactly what he is taking you, where he's taking you. He will teach you in a small proportion. Joseph had to take care of the prisoners in that prison cells, in that prison house. Joseph was in charge. God was teaching him how to manage people, how to have authority and power over people. And with that experience, when he gets out, God is going to put him in a place that he takes care of entire nation. But in order to get out, he needs a tool, the key that will open the door. And that is the revelation that God gave him. To establish him through that revelation, God releases his divine power to Joseph, so he can interpret dreams that only Joseph can interpret. So then Pharaoh also dreamt, and there was no one to interpret. So eventually the butler remembered that there is a Hebrew boy in the prison house who is good in interpreting dreams. A man's gift will make room for him and bring him before great men. So Joseph was brought out of the prison before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh told him the dream, and Joseph interpreted the dream, that there are 7 years of famine coming. 7 years of abundance will be followed by 7 years of famine. So let's build storehouses and store food. And during the 7 years of abundance and the 7 years of famine, we can eat from that. And that is what exactly the Pharaoh agreed to. And they said, who else can we put in charge? So verse 40, chapter 41, verse 40, it said, you shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne I will be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt, from one day being a prisoner to ruler of Egypt. So that is the process. Let's go over again. First, God will take you from as a shepherd boy from nowhere, and through a process that you might think the devil wanted to destroy him, but God would turn what the devil meant for evil into good, for your own good, for his glory. That's why the word says, all things work together for good to those who love the Lord and to those who are called according to God's purpose. In Romans 8:28. So he will lift you up from nowhere, raise you up to a place of authority, and because what he has spoken that he will make you is inside you, you must go into a place of darkness. You must go into the ground and be sown. In that place of darkness, you are not just sitting there, because that's the time the seed has to get roots and be connected to the soil. And the soil feed the nutrients. And because God is the gardener, he knows the soil that he has placed you in. And that is the time he gives you revelation. That's the time he gives you deep revelation and teach you, put you in a place of authority and power. So when you get out from that darkness, the seed shoot out, it goes upwards only. And God is the gardener, so he watches over it until it bears fruit to feed the multitude, to show his glory. So then, let's turn to Moses. Moses was also born to slave Hebrew parents when they were slaves in Egypt. And at the time, Pharaoh had decreed that they should kill every newborn Hebrew boy. If it's a male, kill it. And at a certain point, he decreed, when Moses was born, he decreed that they should kill every 2-year-old born, because the midwives were not following the order. So they hid Moses, and eventually Moses turned up to be raised in Pharaoh's own home. Now let's turn to Exodus and start with chapter 9 to 10. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take the child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, because I drew him out of the water. Now the same Pharaoh who decreed that they should kill the children, because there's special anointing on Moses, he ended up in Pharaoh's own home. And Pharaoh had to train him. And he was trained by the best and in line to become the next Pharaoh. That is raising up to the place of authority. But no power yet. Then what happened? He must go into the darkness. God has to sow him. So he killed an Egyptian and he went into exile in the wilderness for 40 years. But during that 40 years, what was Moses doing? Let's turn to Exodus chapter 4. when God appeared to Moses in the burning bushes. And let's start chapter 4, verse 1 to 7. Then Moses answered and said, but suppose they did not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, the Lord has not appeared to you. So the Lord said to him, what is in your hand? He said, a rod. And he said, cast it off the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. But before then, Exodus chapter 3, verse 1 to 4. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of the Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of the bushes. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consuming. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he has turned aside to look, God called him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for this place where you stand is holy grounds. From this we know that when Moses went to the desert, went to the wilderness, he became a shepherd. And how many years did Moses stay in the wilderness? 40 years. He was 40 when he fled from Egypt. He stayed in the wilderness for 40 years, and at the end of the 40 years, he met God in the burning bushes. So, during that 40 years, God was giving him training how to shepherd flock in the wilderness. Because the assignment that he's giving him is to shepherd Israel for 40 years in the wilderness. And the rod that is in his hand is the power, that is the key to open the door. For God's power to flow in through that rod divinely to open the door. So through that rod, that was how he could go to Pharaoh's home, Pharaoh's palace, and lay down the snake, and it became snake. And Pharaoh took all his diviners, and they also brought a lot of snakes, and Moses' snake swallowed all of them and became a snake again. It is the same snake through that divine power flow to open the Red Sea. It is the same snake that when they needed water, God asked him to hit the rock, to tap the rock, and water gush out. So every time God wants to make you into something, he will take you from nowhere. He will raise you up to a place of authority and then bury you into the ground. But when you go to that place of darkness, it's going to, anything seed that goes down must be stripped off everything. The shell must break and everything must die, except the inner core that comes out, that the seed takes roots and germinate. But it's God himself giving you the nutrients that you need, the training and the refinement and building your faith. So by the time you come out, the plant comes out and it grows upwards only, ready to make a tree and form fruits, produce fruits to feed the multitude, to show God's glory. Now, let's turn to David. Let's turn to David. Because David, well, you can see, will also go through exact same process. Let's turn to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Start from verse 1. This is when Saul has disobeyed, the first king of Israel has disobeyed God, and God has rejected Saul, and he's giving Israel a replacement. So let's start from 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 1. Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn out and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me. But the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you should do. You shall anoint for me the one I name to you. So God is going to make Joseph a king over Israel. Joseph at this time is a shepherd boy. Nobody knows him. Nobody knew him. Jesse brought out all his 7 children, and it was not. Verse 6. So it was when they came that he looked at Eliab and said, surely the Lord has anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as a man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So all the sons came, and God rejected all of them. And let's shoot on to verse 11. And Samuel said to Jesse, are all the young men here? Then he said, there remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Now, David is a shepherd boy looking after sheep. All of a sudden, one day, called in an anointed king of Israel. But when God anoints you, he places you in a place of authority without power yet. So you must go into darkness, a place of darkness. But your gifting will lead you to where that God wants you to go. And God put a spirit upon Saul to disturb him, a distressing spirit. So verse 14, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressed spirit from the Lord troubled him. So now God is orchestrating something for an opportunity for David to get in touch with Saul, because this is the one he's going to replace. He has to put him in the palace. Then one of the servants answered and said, look, I have seen a son of Jesse Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a mighty man of valor, man of war, prudent in speech, and handsome person, and the Lord is with him. Therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, send me your son, David, who is with the sheep. A shepherd boy. Now, because of the gifting, the skillful gifting that God has given him to play a musical instrument, he got access into the palace, being raised to that place of authority. Now, he stayed with David, Saul, and then the Goliath time came and David killed the Goliath and all that. You're not going to go there because that is a more deeper teaching there, is teaching on its own. So you jump to chapter 18, 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 5. So David went, I'll start with verse 1, 18, verse 1. When he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off his robe that it was on him and gave it to David with his armor. When even to his sword and his bow and his belt. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely, and Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also the sight of Saul's servants. All of a sudden, David had been taken from the shepherd as a shepherd boy, being anointed as king, but he's not a king yet. He has the authority to be king, but no power. He hasn't sat on the throne yet. But God will raise you up to a place of authority. But once you get there, know that there is a period of darkness coming your way. And he has gone to the palace. Jonathan, Saul's son, has made covenant with him. They become so tied, and they love each other. Not sexually. And Saul set David over his army. Now, because he has been raised to a place of authority, darkness is coming his way because God wants to make him a king of Israel. So then let's read the following. Now it happened when they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women who had come out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines and with joy and with musical instruments. So the women sang and danced and said, Saul has slain his 1,000 and David his 10,000. Then Saul was very angry and saying, this saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000, and to me they have ascribed only 1,000. Now what more has he have but the kingdom? So Saul eyed David from that day forward to destroy him. The period of darkness has come. So David had to run away to the point that David and Jonathan saw that no, Saul wanted to kill David. So David ran away. And when he ran away, he had to go to a place of darkness. Now let's turn to chapter chapter 21, verse 8 and 9. And David said to Ahimelech, Ahimelech was the priest in the synagogue, is there not here on hand a spear or a sword? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapon with me, because the king's business requires haste. So the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, there it is, wrapped in cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that here. And David said, there is none like it, give it to me. There is none like this, give it to me. So that is the first key. The sword of the enemy. Using the enemy's own sword to go and destroy them. So God gave him a power, a key through which the divine power will flow, in order to open door for him to be king, to actually sit on the throne. So in the place of darkness, God will always release these two keys. One is the key that will lead you to a place of power, that he can flow his divine power through you, that no other person can do it except you. And then at the same time, he will train you in the work that is ahead. So let's turn to 1 Samuel chapter 22 and read from verse 1 and 2. David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, everyone who was discontent, gathered to him. So he became the captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. So God has given him the sword, through which he will flow his divine power for him to conquer and rule and overtake, drive out the Philistines and the Amorites and the Canaanites and all of them. At the same time, God has given them people that are rejected by others, people who are distressed, people who are in debt, people, basically the useless people in society. But God has given it to David to be head of them, to train them, because there's a time coming. You're not just going to train, all these people are part of Israel. You're not going to train only these people, but you're going to train the whole nation. But that place of darkness, that's where you get your training. That is where you get the key for divine power to flow to you. And that power will lead you to open doors. So, when you continue, David had to eventually fight the last battle in Ziklag. And after he fought the battle, that is chapter 30, you can read it there. After he fought that battle, he decided, after Saul's death, he decided to go back to Judah. Because at this time he has gone to the Philistines to live in Philistine. After Ziklag, that's the last battle that David fought, and after that he inquired of God that if he should go back home. So 2 Samuel chapter 2 verse 1. It happened after the death of Saul, David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said to him, go up. David said, where shall I go up? And he said to him, to Hebron. So David went up there, and with his two wives, also Ahinoam and the Jezreelite, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite. And David brought up the men who were with him, every man with his household, so they dwell in the city of Hebron. Then the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David over the house of Judah. Now remember, David had already been anointed king of Israel. But for 13 years, he was 17 when he was anointed. He did not sit on the throne until when he was 30. And this time, he had to be re-anointed for Judah, not Israel. He reigned for Judah for 7.5 years, and then Israel came to beg him to rule over the entire nation. So he did not just become king of Israel, but he became king of Israel and Judah and put them together. So this is the process that you have to go through when God says, I have chosen you, when God has spoken to you that I will make you into something. First, you have to be raised to a place of authority. Next, you are the seed yourself, so you have to go to the ground, the place of darkness. In that place of darkness, yes, you'll be stripped of everything you have. And that is a place of affliction, a place of pain. But through that, God is going to train you in two things. One, he is going to release something to you that you alone can do. And through that, he will flow his divine power through you to accomplish that. And number two, he's going to train you in the level that he has told you he's going to make you in a smaller proportion. But when you get out, he's going to empower you to do exactly in the much bigger proportion, in the worldly proportion. Because in Isaiah 60 verse 15, it reads, and this is very special to me because when I started about 6 years ago, this was what God gave it to me. And he said, whereas you have been forsaken and hated, so that no one wants to go through you, I will make you eternal excellence and joy of many generations. So you're going to go through a place that you'll be forsaken and hated. Because during that time, when you are a seed, when the seed goes ground, because you are underneath the ground, and the people around you are on top of the ground. So you are receiving nutrients from the soil that God has placed in you and training you. But the people around you, they don't understand you. Because nothing that you are doing makes sense to them anymore. And they will be shining away. That is at the time that you are going to know exactly who truly are your friends or your family. And I can guarantee you, your closest family, they will disabandon you. They will abandon you. They will forsake you. They will reject you. They will say all kinds of things about you. But that's okay, because you know there is something in you. Once God has said, I will make you something, he placed that thing in you. It's a seed that in you that has to come out. And it's just like a pregnant woman. When the woman is pregnant, she knows she's pregnant. You can't tell her otherwise. She knows she's pregnant. She's carrying a baby. And at a certain point, the birth pains will come. And she will have to give birth. You yourself, the same. Once God has said, I will make you into something, you are carrying God's purpose inside you. And you know you are pregnant with that thing. And it keeps growing. And you keep growing in what God is teaching you. But he's going to teach you in the place of darkness, because that's where he's going to set you apart, sanctify you, and refine you, mold you, and teach you what faith is all about. So nobody can tell you otherwise. No. But when the seed shoots up, God himself is your gardener. Nobody can touch the seed. For what he has started, he said, the good work he has started in you shall be completed. And the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. You will finish, and you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So if God has spoken to you that I will make you into something, you are blessed, and God is going to release that anointing upon you the moment he tells you that he has already anointed you, and he's going to release the blessing through which divine favor flows and give you the power to produce. And he said, this fruit shall remain to the glory of the Most High. So thank you for tonight, and I will see you next week. We move to the New Testament. God bless you all.